Ahem. So you think you've got what it takes for the job, huh? Well, let me tell you. We will break you down and build you back up into the best salesman this city's ever seen. That is, if you can get the job. This image represents hyper IgE syndrome, better known as job syndrome. So naturally, this image takes place at a job interview. Let's get started. So how does any hiring process start? Well, first, the company needs to be hiring. You might even say that they need to have a deficiency of helpers. See the help needed sign the CEO is holding? That's because job syndrome is characterized by a deficiency of helper T cells. Now take a look at the fancy tank in the back of the room. Like any good, wealthy CEO, he keeps his office stocked with exotic fish. And what fish do we have today? Well, this CEO likes to keep something especially rare, eel. But notice something funny about these eel? Their tails are forked, which kind of makes them resemble antibodies. That's because all of these eels represent IgE. Get it? IG eel. Since job syndrome is an immunodeficiency, exam writers will often ask you to recognize changes in immunoglobulin levels. All of these eels should help you remember the key change, an increase in IgE levels. Remember, job syndrome is also known as hyper IgE syndrome. Now take a look at the fish food in the tank. Notice how it's pink and kind of represents eosinophilic granules? That's because job syndrome is also characterized by eosinophilia. Next, take a look at the broken net by the side of the tank. They should have known that eels as special as these can't be captured so easily. This net represents neutrophils, and it's broken to represent the impaired neutrophil recruitment seen in job syndrome. Next, take a look at the tree statue at the back of the room. The word statue should help you remember stat, and the fact that it's a tree should help you remember the number 3. Get it? 3, tree? That's because in job syndrome, the gene STAT3 is mutated, which is the original cause of the rest of this disease's manifestations. Everything else you see is a result of this mutation. Before moving on to the clinical features, now take a look outside the window to see the CEO's car. No surprise here, it's big and intimidating. This large, dominant automobile should help remind you that job syndrome is autosomal dominant. Now let's move on to the clinical features. First, take a look at the coarse jawline on our CEO. This should help remind you that job syndrome is characterized by coarse facial features. Now let's take a closer look at our applicant. He sure looks young, doesn't he? In fact, he seems to still have his baby teeth in multiple rows. A picture with multiple rows of teeth may come up on test day, and this applicant should help remind you that job syndrome is characterized by retained primary teeth. I think his youth seems to be getting to him. Look how nervous he is. He can't seem to stop scratching his arm. This inflamed arm should help remind you of the dermatologic problems seen in job syndrome, such as eczema. Lastly, for one of the most important clinical findings of this syndrome, take a look at the CEO's staff. No, not that staff, like a literal staff. What a power move. Notice also how it's blue and cold, just like the CEO's heart. This cold staff should help remind you that cold staph abscesses are seen in job syndrome. With an impaired immune system, job syndrome patients have trouble fighting off infections. They aren't able to mount a sufficient immune response, which is why the abscesses are cold and non-inflamed. One of the ways that I like to remember this is to tie it back to impaired neutrophil recruitment, symbolized by the broken fish net from earlier. No neutrophil chemotaxis means no inflammatory response. This lack of inflammation then causes the cold abscesses, which is very high yield. And that's all we have for job syndrome. It's an autosomal dominant immunodeficiency that leads to a variety of signs and symptoms. You may have come across the mnemonic word FATED for facies, abscesses, teeth, IgE, and derm problems. Unfortunately, this mnemonic is missing a lot of important details about the disease. Instead, just remember our nervous applicant here applying for the job, and you'll get these questions right on test day. So, did I get the job?